Hi there. Welcome to another edition of TokStocks. I'm your host, Keir Reynolds, and today we're lucky enough to have Max Sali, VP of Corporate Development and a director with Monumental Energy, which trades on the TSX Venture Exchange with the ticker MNRG. Hey, Max, how you doing?
Here, good to see you, as always.
Hey, nice to see you. It seems like quite a while since I've seen you in person, so nice to see you on camera here. Maybe before we get started, we're going to rattle through, give you an opportunity for a 60-second sort of pitch. I'm going to ask a couple questions if you wouldn't mind answering them. First one, what is the mission and vision of the company?
We have lithium assets in Chile. We are now involved in oil and gas in New Zealand. We'd like to get more into that space. And it's just focusing on clean and green energy, but obviously trying to pivot to the point where maybe one day Monumental can have a bit of its own revenue.
How many shares are outstanding?
Just below 58 million.
What is the insider ownership and how much capital have you invested?
It's significant. I think myself and my family would be probably close to 20%, at least friends and family a lot more. I've bought about 2 million shares in the market, ranging from the lows at 3.5 cents all the way to the highs 2 years ago at 70. So it's been more than my salary. It's been pretty substantial.
Are you funded for 2024?
We are funded for 2024, yes.
And what are your short-term catalysts?
So we just closed a sale of one of our assets in Chile yesterday. We retained a 2% NSR. We sold the asset for a lump sum cash, $725,000, which is more than we spent on it. And you can use that cash for other things in the energy space, and also use that cash to fund our flagship lithium Salar Laguna Blanca.
What is your market cap?
I think we're about 10 cents now, so just shy of 6 million.
Excellent. Thanks for giving us a rundown. Maybe for my viewers, some of my viewers that don't know who you are, maybe we could talk a little bit about your background. Your family's been quite prominent in venture capital. Maybe if you wouldn't mind talking about yourself a little bit, it'd be great.
Yeah, so I kind of started investing in 2009, 10. I had a few other jobs at the same time. One of the things I was doing was mobile auto detailing. And so I would go to brokers' houses, fund managers' houses, successful people's homes, and detail their Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and such. And that led to me getting stock tips. My uncle is a very big broker, ran Dundee Securities for many, many years. And so I go to a lot of his friends' houses and just kind of got more interested in it. I met you in 2010. You were doing Realm Energy. And so that was one of my first bigger size investments. I think that went from 10 cents to $1.50. And so then started managing some family capital, found a stock called Tag Oil, which also went from 10 cents to about $11, followed by New Zealand Energy Corp, which went from $0.25 to $4, African Oil, and a number of other stocks. So the oil and gas sector was some of the biggest wins I had coming into the business and for my family. And so now having the opportunity to invest in New Zealand Energy, kind of the round two, second coming 14 years later, this is one of the big new things that Monumental Energy is doing.
Awesome. And, I had a chance to sort of get to know you and your family. You got a wonderful family and a wonderful father. Unfortunately, he passed before his time, but I know you really admired him and you sort of worked with him. Would you mind sort of explaining a little bit about sort of who he was?
Yeah, so he came from a poor farm in Saskatchewan, moved to Vancouver, ran a company called Timbermart, which is kind of like a home hardware. So from 1975 until 2005, and grew to the business to a very profitable business. They were doing over $1 billion a year in revenue when he retired. And so looked up to him a lot. He was more on the development side, started investing in stocks, had some very good wins, and then just learned a lot from my uncle as well. And so kind of managing some family capital. And then when things kind of quieted down, you could say, in the markets, I started getting into the more market side of things. One thing that I found as an investor is unless you own a lot of shares, it's very hard to get anything done with management. And so I wanted to be on the other side where I can build these vehicles with good people, put my own capital in there and be able to, listen to what shareholders want. And I think if you talk to some of our shareholders at Monumental, obviously, just like everyone else right now, the stocks are being, they're hit. And we're hoping to rebuild the company. There was a management change late 2023. And since I kind of took over again, we've gone from 4 cents to 12 cents yesterday. And with our new assets that we have, selling an asset for cash. So just kind of fixing the company, but always learn to work hard and be honest. And one thing I do know is shareholders like people that buy shares. And so if the guy running the show isn't buying stock, why am I buying stock in that guy's company? And so I put my money where the mouth is. And if the stock doesn't do well, I don't do well. So it's beneficial for this to work out, however we do it.
Yeah, maybe you could talk. I know this isn't your first rodeo. This isn't your first. This is sort of the third company that you founded. Maybe you could sort of talk about sort of the other two and what happened with them.
So the first company you were involved with, you were a director on me, was called First Legacy. That became Defense Metals. It's about a $60 to $70 million market cap right now. They're in the rare earth space, but they're in their FS stage, so feasibility study. So they've done their pre-fees. They got fully funded now to do the feasibility study. Moving a company from a shell to acquiring an asset to getting it to that stage is pretty significant, because most people never get to that stage when they're building a company, especially in mining. So that feasibility study should come out shortly and be quite profitable for the company when those numbers come out. Just as I was doing that, I was a founding shareholder and corporate development for Advantage Lithium. We sold that to Orocobre at the bottom of a market for about $70 million in 2021. But if you held on to those shares, it would have been worth about $400 because lithium took off. At the same time, we were doing New Placer Dome or Barian Mining, which became New Placer. We merged that with Copar. They're a metals group company, and so they're running that now. Obviously, gold's been tough, but you keep trying to move things forward as you can. And now here we are with Monumental. I think we came trading 3 years ago as of April 30th. So we were Monumental Gold, pivoted to Monumental Minerals, and now Monumental Energy. A good structure. We've kept it clean. We were able to raise a lot of capital at higher prices. And so we're fully funded for what we have to do in 2024 right now. And I think you're going to see a lot coming in the next few months in terms of news flow for us and then opportunities that will arise.
Well, you and I have spent, in our youth, a few years back, quite a lot of time together, and there's never a dull moment with you. But maybe you could tell us about a crazy story that you're able to tell about a time in the capital markets. Anything you can share with us?
Oh, I mean, off the top of my head, I would just say, if anyone gets the opportunity to go down and look at gold mines in Colombia, I would definitely not say no to that one again. That was a long time ago. That was 2011.
Right. So you kind of went over when Monumental went public and that it's pivoted. You've pivoted into energy. You kind of changed the focus last year. Maybe you could kind of give us an overview again of sort of the two prongs of the company. You kind of have lithium and then you have natural gas, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe you could just walk us through those opportunities again and what you have going on with the company.
Yeah, so our flagship asset, which is about 12,500 acres in Chile, is called Laguna Blanca. It's a lithium brine cesium sediment salar, and we're very close to getting a deal done with the community. That we actually have dinner with them tomorrow, or our representatives do, in Chile in San Pedro de Atacama, to try and move things forward on that salar. It's taken a while. Chile is going through a lithium strategy of their own right now, and we see the progress that they're making, and so you'll see an update from us about that next week sometime, along with an update on our New Zealand investment. And the grades are 1,230 milligrams per liter, which are extremely high, almost as high as Salar de Atacama. Chile recently came out and blocked 30% of all salars for environmental reasons. Then they put out the list of salars that are for, you have to joint venture with the government. And then they put out a list of salars that are being allowed for exclusive private development. And I have a list, and at the top is Laguna Blanca. So we have the best case scenario with our salar, and we're hoping to get onto the property with proper drills in the next few months. We sold our secondary Salar de Turi, to Summit Nanotech. They're a DLE company. We just figured they could probably move it forward faster than us. We have to use DLE technology whenever you do anything now in Chile. And so we maintain an NSR of 2%. And now we have that cash, non-dilutive to shareholders, that we can use for Laguna Blanca and then to make other investments in oil and gas and such. Our New Zealand Energy Corp investment, we invested 1 million shares at 38 cents in late December. We now have a bigger position that we've added to in the recent financing. And so we have about 1.3 million shares at a cost base of 46 cents. New Zealand Energy yesterday was $1.05 to $1.15. It's very tight structure. And so we think with that investment just on the shares that are marketable securities, the dividend that they expect to pay on production, and the potential for us to maybe partner on some of the other assets is going to be a substantial win for Monumental, because anything non-dilutive where I can fund the company and use the potential revenue to fund the lithium, which will make a return, I think is a great strategy.
In terms of your ownership, you mentioned how many shares you kind of own of New Zealand. What percentage of the company do you own?
It's about 10%.
And in terms of your Salar that you've got in Chile, how many hectares is that?
So the big Salar Laguna Blanca is 12,500 hectares. We have an option to earn up to 75% of that with our partner Lithium Chile. We are very close with our partner Lithium Chile. Their COO is our interim CEO, Michelle DeCecco. She's fantastic. And so I think you're going to see us doing a lot more work with them in the near future as well.
So we read a lot about like natural gas and like prices and things. Prices have been sort of like in the, haven't been very strong. Is that really the case? Is that the same sort of case in New Zealand? What's the natural gas sort of market look like in that neck of the woods?
So New Zealand, as a specific market, you're in the middle of nowhere. And so the price of gas is about $11 to $12 Canadian versus Canada, which is 2 to 3. We're at a low here, I think, for nat gas prices. They also receive Brent crude pricing, so US dollar pricing for all the oil they produce, which goes directly to market as well, and all their input costs are New Zealand. So I think a dollar US is $1.60 New Zealand. So your costs to drill these wells are substantially lower. And then when you're producing, you're getting US dollars and you're converting the currency. So when you look at the quarterlies for New Zealand Energy in Canadian dollars, it could be substantial, especially with the gas aspect. And so it's a great kind of niche market to invest in. There's very few players. They own all the infrastructure. It goes directly to market. Just like here in BC, we have our Fortis, our gas producer. They would just sell the gas to their local gas producer for the towns. And so it was a good investment for us. We were lucky enough with the TSX to get a waiver. As a tier 2 company, you're not supposed to invest in other companies, but we have very good lawyers and a good relationship with the exchange, and they understood where we were trying to go, that this investment would help our company and help our shareholders.
And so New Zealand Energy, does it have any revenues or cash flow today?
They predict over the next 12 months, once they start, they're doing some workovers now. Once they get the gas well on, it's actually in their presentation, between $40 and $50 million in revenue over the next 12 months, which is substantial considering their market cap is, I think closing this financing, they'll have 15 or 16 million shares out, and they're at $1-ish. So they should be trading. If they do that revenue and you look at a 2.5 times multiple on international oil and gas stocks, and they do what they say they're going to do, that should be a $5 or $6 stock. And so that would mean, in terms of Monumental, $5 to $6+ million non-dilutive to us on the shares, plus the dividend, plus any potential farm-ins we could do with them.
And you mentioned something about infrastructure that they own. Just for those of us that aren't familiar, would you mind just explaining a little bit about what that is? And what sort of cost it would normally cost to actually build out this infrastructure?
So if you wanted to build the infrastructure they have now, it would probably be about $100 million. Wow. They own 50% of it. The other 50% is owned by a billionaire out of New Zealand. But the nice thing about this is, there's unconventional and there's conventional wells. Unconventional would be you're drilling in the middle of Namibia or somewhere else in Africa, and great, you hit. So now you got to, you cap it, and then you got to build the infrastructure, or you got to truck it somewhere. With New Zealand, they have all the pipelines. So once they can produce from these shallow wells, it goes right into the facility. The facility can do up to 25,000 barrels a day oil. And so it's in great working condition, great order, a little bit of care and maintenance here and there, but the weather in New Zealand all year round is quite good. So you don't see any corrosion or in certain areas of the world where the weather takes a toll on the facility. So the nice thing about that is once they flow the wells, it can go right to the facility. Within 2 weeks, they'll be receiving revenue.
Wow, sounds phenomenal. why don't we switch gears a moment? Thanks for giving us an overview on that. Why don't we sort of talk cap table? Um, Maybe you could just remind us again how many shares do Monumental have outstanding?
Yeah, so it's just under 58 million shares. Myself and my family are significant shareholders. Most of my friends own good chunks of stock. We do have a firm out of London called Ocean Wall. They represent about 18 million shares. And then there's a number of funds in Toronto that do hold us as well. And so it's a very clean structure. We've had a bit more volume in the last couple of months, which I think is a good thing. It's healthy. The stocks moved up. One day you have a good day, one day you have a down day, but that is what it is. Everyone just paid the big tax bill, and so we had a down day today. But I think with the structure and how tight it is with any good catalyst, it doesn't take much to clean it up if you look at the chart.
And do you have any sort of warrants or options outstanding on those?
Yeah, so there are 30-cent warrants. There are 65-cent warrants, so substantially on the money. There's not a lot of options that are in the money. We did issue some yesterday, and those are going to strategic individuals, advisors, consultants that should help all together build the company to a greater stock price.
Sure. And maybe you could just reiterate one more time on sort of percentages, so insiders, what, 20-24%, something like that?
Yeah, I would say insiders, friends, and family are definitely at least 25%. Ocean Wall represents a big chunk, and I could probably figure out where the rest is. But I would say in terms of your retail float, we're maybe 10 million shares-ish, 10 to 15 million in the retail float.
So maybe 20-25%.
Mm-hmm.
What were the terms of some of the previous financings that you did?
Yeah, so the IPO, which was 3 years ago, was 20 cents. We did a financing following that when we acquired Laguna Blanca. That was 5 million at 45 cents, so the full warrant at 65. And then we did two strategics. So we did 2.2 million out of London with Ocean Wall at 17.5 cents, and another million out of Toronto for the same price. And so we're trying to get everything back to kind of that base. And I think with a few good news releases, we can at least see that floor again and keep moving it up. It's been tough. The delay in getting to drill in Chile didn't help us. Lithium prices coming off didn't help us. And so, when I talked to shareholders, different views. One said, well, hunker down, cut your burn, and wait for better markets. But that doesn't make the stock go up. That's just going to make your stock trickle and trickle and trickle. Because if all you have is cash, your cash gets burnt monthly. So what did we do with it? We were able to do this New Zealand Energy investment. And we are up significantly with 1 million free trading shares now, which if I wanted to move the block is not hard. But I think it's going to be really profitable for us over the next 12 months or more. And I think when lithium prices come back, especially for the brines, which are higher grade and the most economic form of lithium production, you're going to see the value of these salars come back substantially too, especially after you put a few holes in the ground.
So how much cash was last disclosed that you still have at Monumental?
I think the last financials were over 3 million.
Okay. And you mentioned that you're fully funded for your planned activities within the company for 2024.
Yeah, I mean, if I think once we get community approval on Laguna Blanca, if we did need to top it up a bit with a strategic, I think you're going to have a lot of people putting a lot of eyes on us if we do get that agreement fully executed. In terms of the oil and gas side, we're looking at potential investments in the oil and gas sector, maybe somewhere in the range of a workover well, so not a big risk, but we'll get a little bit of production to Monumental just to keep the burn, cover the burn. But yeah, I mean, I don't think funding is an issue. If we were able to move certain things forward, we do have the capital, we do have the New Zealand shares, and I think access to capital, if we're going in the right direction, for just a small top up would be quite easy to do.
Why don't we sort of wrap up here? What's a typical day look like for you?
Well, I usually wake up to a kid wanting a bottle, and so that's like 5 a.m. So once he gets that, then I'm downstairs on the computer. I walked down to the office today. It was a beautiful morning here in Vancouver, so I'm close by. My office in Yaletown. I'm in Kitsilano. It's a 45-minute walk across the bridge, and I'll be here every day, 5 days a week. I like doing stuff at the office, and then I'll finish up at home after market for a few hours and then play with the kids. And, hobbies, obviously, being by the water when it's a bit warmer out. Hopefully we can get the paddleboard out again, the road bike. But yeah, I love what I do. Not every day, it's a fun business to be in. I've made a lot of money. I've lost a lot of money. I've made friends. One of the nice things, I've never really made any enemies in this business because I always try and keep my head above water and clean. And it's an interesting business. And if things work, you do well. But it's been a tough 10 years for everyone in mining, at least. And I think we're now turning the table on things. I think this is going to be a busy summer. And the price of gold's at a high. The gold stocks don't seem to be following yet. But I think there are signs that things are changing. Copper's at a high or close to in a short-term range. Brent oil is very high, and the gas price we're getting in New Zealand is as high as it's going to get. So I think there's a lot of good catalysts, and I look forward to a very busy summer, which is unusual for us in the stock market. It's usually cyclical. But you know what? The nice thing about doing this job in the summer is 4:30, you're up, get to the gym first, and then wake up for market, and then after market, just hang out with the kids.
Any advice for those that might be looking to get into the business?
Yeah, it takes years to figure out really how things work in this industry. And I came in at a time when everyone was making money. It didn't matter if it was a tier 1 asset or a tier 10, right? The markets were just in your favor. And I think a lot of guys, when the markets collapsed, thought they were smarter than they were, including myself, and made a lot of bad choices. And so, when we're looking at stuff, I see assets every day. But really, you got to do the digging. You got to find the right structure, who paid what in the previous round. There's all these ways in the venture to create paper, and I don't necessarily agree with it. But you know what? It's a fun business if you can stomach it and not watch your portfolio every day. Because when I built this company, I'm in it for the long haul. And if you're worried about your day-to-day up and down, it's going to give you a lot of stress.
On that note, do you feel that Monumental shares are undervalued right now?
I do. I bought some shares a few weeks ago. I bought a lot in 2023. Now that things are happening, I can't buy as often or as much as I would like. But I think as things start to progress and we do have more releases, I can make purchases following those releases.
We're going to conclude things here. We look to get you back in sort of the next 3 to 6 months. Any milestones that you hope to have achieved by the next time we talk?
Yeah, well, I think you're going to see a really good update next week on everything, on the whole company and all the assets. We're working on a few things that I think would create more news, but we'll wait till we get that out first before I start giving predictions.
Okay. Any final thoughts or any key messages that you want to leave people with?
Yeah, if anyone ever wants to contact me, I absolutely love speaking to shareholders all the time. I'm very passionate about what I do. I've buried myself in this company along with my family's capital and other friends. And so, I think they're great assets. I've seen the value of where New Zealand was at the peak when they came out. I think they were 400 million at the high. You look at what the value of these salars are, hundreds of millions of dollars for takeouts. So I think between the salar and the oil and gas, we can really create a very good energy company. And I'd like to see the stock perform and get back to where we were 2 years ago before we didn't have these assets at 70 cents or 80 cents or higher. That's the goal, at least for me.
Excellent. Well, Max, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day and speaking with us. We look forward to following your progress and look to have you back. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Gary.